The sky above Elysia burned. What was once a beautiful blue-green canvas now glowed orange with fire and smoke. The Elysians watched in horror as another city fell to the Varden ships. Ambassador Lyra stood at the window of the last functioning government building. Her tall, slender form cast a long shadow across the floor as three suns set on what might be the final day of her civilization. Tears formed in her large almond-shaped eyes. The Elysians had never harmed anyone. They had spent centuries creating art, exploring science, and seeking knowledge. And now they were being wiped out simply because they could not fight back. "How many survivors from Narration City?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her aide, a young Elysian named Kelto, checked the data pad in his hand. "Less than 10,000, Ambassador." The Vardens targeted the shelters first. Lyra closed her eyes. Narration had been home to over 3 million Elysians. "The defense shields around Central City will fail within hours," Kelto added. "We have no way to stop them." Lyra turned from the window. "Then we must send the message. It is our only hope." Kelto looked doubtful. "The primitive planet, Earth? They may not even receive our signal, let alone understand it. And even if they do, what could they possibly do against the Vardens? They are young, yes, but there is something about them. Something the Council has noticed for years." Lyra moved to her desk and pressed her palm against the smooth surface. A holographic display appeared, showing a blue-green planet much like their own. "They fight, constantly, against each other, against nature, against limitations. It is both their greatest flaw and potentially their greatest strength. But they have no warp technology, no quantum weapons. Even if they wanted to help, they could never reach us in time." Lyra smiled sadly. "Perhaps, but they deserve the chance to try, and we have no other options left." The message center was deep underground. As they descended in the gravity lift, explosions above made the building shake. Dust fell from the ceiling. The few remaining Elysian scientists waited for them. The oldest, Dr. Varen, stepped forward. "Ambassador, we've prepared the transmission as you requested. It contains basic mathematical sequences to establish intelligence, followed by the Universal Language Protocol. Then the specifics of our situation and location." "Will they understand it?" Lyra asked. "If they have capable scientists, yes. We've made it as clear as possible." Lyra nodded. "Send it. Direct the signal to Earth." Dr. Varen hesitated. "Ambassador, I must point out that Earth is over 30 light-years away. Even if they receive and decode the message immediately, it would take them decades to reach us with their current technology." "I am aware, Doctor. Send it anyway." The scientists worked quickly. The massive transmission array, normally used for peaceful communication with other friendly species, now aimed toward a distant star where a primitive species lived, unaware of the wider galactic community. "Transmission initiated," Dr. Varen announced, broadcasting on all frequencies. The array hummed with power as it sent the desperate plea across the vast emptiness of space. Lyra watched the energy readings, wondering if anyone would ever hear their call. Suddenly, alarms blared. A scientist called out, "Varden ships have located the transmission center. They're moving into position to fire." "How long until the message is fully transmitted?" Lyra asked. 90 seconds, Dr. Varen replied. "Redirect power from life support if necessary. That message must get through." The building shook violently. Parts of the ceiling collapsed. Emergency lights flashed. 30 seconds remaining, Dr. Varen said, his voice steady despite the chaos. Lyra closed her eyes and thought of the strange creatures on Earth. They called themselves humans. Would they hear the call? Would they even care about the fate of aliens they had never met? "Transmission complete," Dr. Varen announced just as the first Varden missile struck the building directly above them. Lyra smiled as the walls began to crumble around them. Their fate was sealed, but perhaps someone, somewhere, would remember the Elysians, and maybe, just maybe, the humans would prove to be something special. thousands of light years away. At a listening post in Alaska, a computer began to record an unusual signal from deep space. Laura Alvarez yawned as she stared at the computer screens. The night shift at NASA's Deep Space Listening Post in Alaska was usually quiet. Most of her job involved watching for signals from their own satellites and space probes. She sipped her coffee and checked the time. 3:24 a.m. The computer beeped suddenly. Laura sat up straight, fully awake now. One of their deep space arrays had picked up something unusual. "What have we got?" she muttered to herself, typing commands to analyze the signal. The computer processed the data, showing complex wave patterns unlike anything in their database. Laura's heart raced. This wasn't random space noise. The patterns repeated with mathematical precision. She picked up the phone and dialed her supervisor. "Dr. Peterson, it's Laura. You need to see this." Within hours, the small listening post became the center of attention. Scientists from across the country flew in. The president's science advisor arrived by military helicopter. They all crowded into the control room, watching as the signal continued to come through. Dr. Alan West, the nation's top xenolinguist, hadn't slept in 36 hours. His eyes were red but excited as he pointed to the latest printouts. "It's a language primer, followed by a message," he explained. "They're using mathematics as a foundation, then building communication on top of that. It's brilliant." "They?" President Samuel Carter asked. He had arrived just an hour ago, after being briefed that the signal appeared to be artificial and non-human in origin. "Yes, Mr. President. This is unquestionably a message from an intelligent non-human species." Dr. West could barely contain his excitement, and we're beginning to understand what they're saying. The president looked around the room. "I want to know what this message says. Now." Dr. West nodded. "The first part establishes communication. The second part," his voice faltered, "the second part appears to be a distress call." Laura helped display the translated portions on the main screen. The room fell silent as everyone read the message. "To any intelligent life capable of receiving this signal, we are the Elysians. Our civilization is under attack by a hostile force known as the Varden Collective. Millions have already died. Our defenses have failed. We have days before extinction. Our location is..." The message included detailed stellar coordinates and information about both the Elysians and their attackers. "Could this be some kind of hoax?" General Tim Rogers asked. Dr. West shook his head. "This signal came from 30.4 light-years away. The transmission technology required to send this message is far beyond our capabilities." The president rubbed his temples. "So an alien civilization is being wiped out, and they've asked us for help. What can we possibly do? Even with our fastest rockets, it would take thousands of years to reach them." A man in a plain black suit who had been standing quietly in the corner stepped forward. "Not necessarily, Mr. President." All eyes turned to him. "This is William Collins, Chief Engineer of Project Guardian." General Rogers introduced him. "Project what?" the President asked. Collins looked to the General, who nodded. "Mr. President, after the Roswell incident in 1947, the world's governments began a classified program to develop advanced technology based on what we recovered. Project Guardian has been building ships in secret facilities on the far side of the moon and beneath the Martian surface for decades." The room erupted in shocked voices. The president held up his hand for silence. "You're telling me we have spaceships capable of interstellar travel?" "Yes, sir. We have a fleet of 70 warships, including the dreadnought EDF Excalibur. They're equipped with warp technology reverse-engineered from recovered alien craft." "And you kept this from me?" The president's voice was dangerously quiet. "The project operates on a need-to-know basis across administrations, sir. Only those directly involved are briefed." The president turned to look at the message from the dying civilization again. "Could these ships reach the Elysians in time to help?" Collins nodded. "At maximum warp, we could be there in 5 days." President Carter stared at the coordinates of a civilization he'd never known existed until today. a civilization about to be wiped out. Get me the Joint Chiefs and the UN Security Council. Now. He turned to Collins. And I want those ships ready for immediate deployment. As people rushed to follow orders, Laura stayed at her station, watching as more of the alien message was decoded. She thought about the beings who had sent it, wondering if they truly believed anyone would come to their aid. They would soon find out that humans weren't about to let another civilization die without a fight. The massive hangar doors on the far side of the moon slid open silently. No one on Earth could see this side of the moon, which had made it the perfect place to hide humanity's greatest secret for decades. Jack Reeves stood on the bridge of the EDF Excalibur, watching as his crew prepared for launch. The ship was enormous, nearly 2 miles long, with weapon systems that could destroy a small moon. Around the Excalibur, 69 other warships of various sizes waited for orders. "Admiral Reeves, all systems are ready," said Frank Hudson, the captain of the EDF Vanguard. His face appeared on the main screen. "The fleet awaits your command." Jack nodded. He was still getting used to being called Admiral. Until 3 days ago, he had been a retired Navy SEAL living quietly in Montana. Then the call had come, activating him for a mission he never thought would happen. "All ships, this is Admiral Reeves. Prepare for departure in 30 minutes. We're making history today." He turned to see Diana Miller approach. As head of strategic operations, she had been with Project Guardian from the beginning. "The President is online, Admiral," she said. Jack turned to the main screen where President Carter's face appeared. "Admiral Reeves, is your fleet ready?" "Yes, Mr. President. All 70 ships are prepared to depart." The President nodded. "The United Nations Security Council has unanimously approved this mission. You're authorized to use any means necessary to protect the Elysian people." "Understood, sir. There's something else you should know." The President looked tired. "We've continued to receive transmissions from Elysia. The situation has worsened. The Vardens have destroyed 4 of their 5 major cities. Time is running out." Jack felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Billions of lives depended on their success. "We won't let them down, sir." After the call ended, Jack addressed the fleet commanders one more time. "You all know our mission. An innocent civilization is being slaughtered, and we're the only ones who can help them. These ships have never been tested in actual combat. The warp drives have never been pushed to their limits. We're about to fly into a war against a technologically advanced enemy we know very little about." He paused, looking at the determined faces on the screen. "But we are humans. We have been fighting wars since we learned to pick up sticks. We've gone from spears to nuclear weapons in the blink of an eye. And now we take our fight to the stars. The Vardens think they can kill with no consequences. Today, they learn they're wrong." The commanders cheered. Jack nodded to Diana, who began the launch sequence. Deep in the heart of the Excalibur, Chief Engineer William Collins watched the warp drive core power up. Blue energy pulsed through massive conduits. For 50 years, the best minds on Earth had worked to understand the technology they had recovered from crashed alien ships. Now they would see if their work would save a civilization. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Diana said. "Begin launch sequence." One by one, the massive warships lifted from the lunar surface. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. Many of the crew members took a moment to look at their home planet, wondering if they would ever see it again. The fleet moved past Mars, where more ships had been hidden in underground bases. As they reached the edge of the solar system, Jack gave the final order. "All ships, prepare for warp. Our destination is the Elysian system. May God have mercy on the Vardens, because we will not." The ships lined up in attack formation. At Jack's command, 70 warp drives activated simultaneously. Space itself seemed to bend around them. Stars blurred into streaks of light. The fleet vanished from our solar system, leaving behind only empty space and a hope that they would reach the Elysians in time. On Earth, millions of people watched their televisions and computer screens as President Carter addressed the world, revealing the existence of Project Guardian and humanity's first steps into an interstellar war. The planet held its breath, waiting to hear if their secret fleet would save a dying alien world. For 5 days, the Earth fleet traveled through warp space. Inside the ships, crews trained and prepared for battle. No one knew exactly what to expect when they arrived. The only information they had about the Vardens came from the Elysian distress signal. On the bridge of the Excalibur, Kyle Bennett monitored the communication systems. His job was to keep the fleet connected and to listen for any new messages from Elysia. For days, there had been nothing but silence. "Admiral, we're approaching the Elysian system," Diana Miller announced. "Exiting warp in 3 minutes." Jack Reeves nodded. "Battle stations. All ships prepare for immediate combat upon arrival." Throughout the fleet, alarm bells rang. Soldiers rushed to their positions. Pilots climbed into fighters. Weapon systems powered up. "Tactical display," Jack ordered. A holographic map appeared, showing their planned arrival point above Elysia's last remaining city. "If their message was accurate, we should find the Varden fleet in orbit around the planet," Diana said. "Our plan is to emerge directly above them." Jack studied the display. "And if the Elysians are already gone?" Diana looked him in the eye. "Then we make the Vardens pay anyway." 30 seconds to arrival," Kyle announced. Jack opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Reeves. In half a minute, we will arrive at Elysia. We don't know what we'll find, but remember why we're here. This is humanity's first contact with alien civilizations. Let's show them what we're made of." 10 seconds, Kyle counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Space tore open as 70 Earth warships emerged from warp. The scene before them was worse than they had feared. Elysia burned. 3 massive Varden ships hung in orbit, firing energy weapons at the planet's surface. Dozens of smaller vessels moved through the atmosphere, hunting down survivors. A large mothership floated above what appeared to be the last city with functioning shields. "My God," Jack whispered. Kyle checked his instruments. "Admiral, I'm detecting Elysian life signs. They're still fighting." Jack straightened his shoulders. "Good. Then we're not too late." He turned to Diana. "Battle Plan Alpha. Target the ships bombarding the surface first." Diana relayed the orders. The Earth fleet moved into position, spreading out to surround the Varden forces. The Vardens, completely surprised by the sudden appearance of unknown ships, hesitated. "Sir, the Vardens are hailing us," Kyle said. "They're demanding to know who we are." Jack smiled grimly. "Put me through." Kyle nodded. "This is Admiral Jack Reeves of the Earth Defense Force. You were warned to leave them alone. Earth stands with Elysia." There was a pause before a harsh, translated voice replied. "Earth? We know of no such world. This is not your concern. Leave now or be destroyed." "Not an option," Jack replied. "You have one chance. Withdraw immediately from Elysian space." The Varden commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your ships are impressive for primitives, but you have no idea who you're challenging. The Vardens have conquered 100 worlds. You will be the 101st. Jack cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer, Maria Sanchez. "Target their main weapon systems. Fire when ready." Maria had been waiting for this moment. Her fingers flew over the controls. "Firing solutions locked, sir." "Fire." The Excalibur shuddered as its main weapon discharged. A beam of blue energy lanced across space and struck the largest Varden ship. The energy cut through the alien vessel's shields like they weren't there, slicing off one of its weapon arms. Throughout the Earth fleet, other ships opened fire. The space above Elysia lit up with explosions and energy beams. The Vardens, recovering from their surprise, began to return fire. "First blood to us," Diana noted as the damaged Varden ship pulled back. One of the smaller Earth vessels took a direct hit and exploded. Jack grimaced, but kept his focus. Launch fighters. Target their engines. I want those bombardment ships disabled now. Hundreds of Earth fighters streamed from the larger ships, racing toward the Varden vessels. On the planet's surface, the surviving Elysians looked up in wonder as the sky darkened with Earth ships. For the first time in weeks, the constant bombardment stopped as the Vardens turned to face this unexpected threat. Hope returned to Elysia. The battle above Elysia grew fierce. Varden ships regrouped quickly after the initial surprise. They were skilled warriors who had conquered many worlds, but they had never faced humans before. Paul Jackson led Falcon Squadron, 12 fighter pilots from Earth's best air forces. His voice was calm as he guided his team between massive enemy ships. Stay in pairs. Target their engine exhausts. Remember your training. The Earth fighters were smaller and faster than the Varden vessels. They darted between laser blasts, firing missiles at weak points. I found something, Olivia Grant called over the radio. As weapons specialist for the fleet, she had been studying Varden technology. Their shields flicker for 2.3 seconds after they fire their main weapons. That's our window. Admiral Reeves heard this from the Excalibur. All ships focus fire on Varden vessels immediately after they discharge weapons. The Earth fleet adjusted their tactics. When a Varden ship fired, multiple Earth vessels concentrated their attack in the seconds that followed. 3 enemy ships exploded in quick succession. On the Varden command ship, General Kravak was furious. Who are these humans? How did they know to target our recharge cycle? His lieutenant checked the battle data. They're adapting to our tactics faster than any species we've encountered. And their weapons, they're not like anything in our records. Kravak slammed his fist down. Bring in the dreadnoughts. Crush these primitives. 5 massive Varden dreadnoughts moved out from behind Elysia's larger moon. Each was twice the size of Earth's largest vessel. Diana Miller saw them first. Admiral, we have a problem. Jack studied the new threat. For a moment, doubt crossed his face. Then he smiled. They're doing exactly what I hoped. Communications, send battle plan Thermopylae to all ships. Kyle Bennett transmitted the orders. The Earth fleet began to move into a new formation, creating what looked like a retreat. Sir, the Vardens are following us, Diana reported. They think we're running. Jack nodded. Let them think that. Lead them into position. The Earth ships pulled back, drawing the Varden fleet toward a narrow space between Elysia's 2 moons. The massive Varden dreadnoughts followed eagerly, sensing victory. They're in position, Diana said. Now, Jack ordered. From hiding places behind asteroids and the smaller moon, Earth's reserve ships appeared. The Varden fleet was now caught in a carefully planned trap, boxed in with limited room to maneuver. All ships, execute pincer attack, Jack commanded. Earth vessels attacked from both sides. In the confined space, the large Varden dreadnoughts couldn't use their superior numbers effectively. They crashed into each other trying to turn around. On his fighter, Paul Jackson grinned as he led his squadron through the chaos. This is for Elysia, he said as he fired his last missiles at a Varden engine core. The explosion rippled through the enemy ship. A chain reaction started, setting off ammunition stores. The dreadnought broke apart, debris hitting 2 other Varden vessels. Across the battlefield, Benjamin Taylor intercepted Varden communications. Admiral, they're confused. Their commanders are arguing with each other. They've never faced these tactics before. Jack wasn't surprised. That's our advantage. Humans have fought wars against each other for thousands of years. We've learned every dirty trick in the book. One by one, Varden ships were disabled or destroyed. Finally, the Varden command ship turned away from the battle. They're retreating, Diana announced, disbelief in her voice. The bridge crew of the Excalibur cheered. Jack allowed them their moment of victory before raising his hand for silence. This is only the first battle, he reminded them. The Vardens will be back with reinforcements. Diana, have medical teams prepare to go down to the surface. We need to help the Elysians and prepare them for what's coming. As Earth ships moved into defensive positions around Elysia, the Excalibur descended toward the planet's surface. Through the viewports, they could see the devastation below. Once beautiful cities lay in ruins, but among the destruction, figures moved, survivors who had held on long enough to see help arrive. Ambassador Lyra stood with the remaining Elysian leaders, watching in amazement as the massive human ship landed outside their shelter. Hope shined in her eyes. The humans had actually come. The Excalibur's landing ramp lowered onto Elysian soil. Admiral Jack Reeves led a small group down to meet the planet's survivors. Richard Stone, the fleet's chief medical officer, brought teams of doctors carrying supplies. Ambassador Lyra stepped forward. She was tall and slender with pale blue skin and large expressive eyes. Behind her stood the remaining Elysian leaders, looking at the humans with a mixture of hope and wonder. "You came," Lyra said simply. "We sent our message into the darkness, never truly believing anyone would hear it. Yet you traveled across the stars to help strangers." Jack bowed slightly. "Earth received your call. We couldn't ignore it." Lyra gestured at the destruction around them. "The Vardans have destroyed most of our world. Billions are dead. Why would you risk your lives for people you've never met?" Jack looked at his fellow humans before answering. "Because that's what humans do. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." The medical teams spread out, treating wounded Elysians. Richard organized field hospitals, while Earth soldiers distributed food and water. The Elysians watched in amazement as these strange beings from another world worked tirelessly to help them. Up in orbit, Diana Miller monitored Vardan communications. "Admiral, we're picking up transmissions. The Vardans are calling for reinforcements. A much larger fleet is heading our way. Estimated arrival in 16 hours. Jack wasn't surprised. "How many ships?" "At least 300. We won't be able to defeat them in direct combat." Jack called Captain Frank Hudson to the surface. They needed a new plan. Frank arrived with Susan Clark, his team's demolitions expert, and Edward Powell, who coordinated the fleet's movements. "We can't win a straight fight against 300 ships," Jack told them. "We need to even the odds." Frank studied the Elysian star maps. "The Vardans will have to pass through this nebula to reach us quickly. What if we set a trap?" Susan nodded excitedly. "We could plant quantum disruptors throughout the nebula. When they pass through, we trigger them all at once. That would disable their navigation and weapons for several minutes," Edward added. "But someone would need to infiltrate their lead ship to coordinate the timing." Jack looked at Frank. "Can your team do it?" Frank nodded. "We'll need a stealth ship and Elysian help to understand Vardan technology." Ambassador Lyra brought forward an Elysian scientist who had studied Vardan ships. "Kel worked on our defense systems. He can help you identify their weaknesses." As they prepared, Jack received a message from Diana. "Sir, you should see this." On a small screen, he watched as Nicole Winters, Earth's ambassador to the newly formed Galactic Council, addressed representatives from dozens of worlds. Somehow, Earth had managed to get an emergency hearing. "The Vardan attack on Elysia is not an isolated incident," Nicole was saying. "We have evidence that the Vardans are proxies for certain members of this council who fear Elysian energy technology would threaten their power. Earth demands an immediate ceasefire and sanctions against those responsible." Many council members looked shocked. Others seemed angry at the accusation. Jack turned to Lyra. "Is this true? Is that why they attacked you?" Lyra nodded sadly. "Our scientists developed a method to create unlimited clean energy. It would have made the hegemony's control of fuel resources worthless. We were going to share it freely with all worlds." Jack's determination grew stronger. "Then we're not just fighting for Elysia. We're fighting for freedom across the galaxy." As night fell, Frank's team prepared for their dangerous mission. The stealth ship, painted black to absorb light, waited in the Excalibur's bay. Susan loaded the quantum disruptors while Edward programmed the detonation sequence. Jack watched the stars, knowing the enemy was coming. Diana's voice came through his communicator. Varden fleet has entered the nebula. Operation needs to begin now. Jack gave Frank a firm handshake. Good luck, Captain. The fate of 2 worlds depends on you now. Frank nodded grimly. We won't let you down, sir. The small stealth ship lifted off silently, disappearing into the night sky on its way to infiltrate the heart of the Varden fleet. Frank Hudson's stealth ship glided silently through the purple mists of the nebula. Beside him, Susan Clark monitored the quantum disruptors they had planted along the Varden fleet's approach path. The small devices looked harmless, floating among the cosmic dust. Last disruptor in place, Susan whispered, though there was no one to hear them in the vacuum of space. 28 devices total. That should cover their entire formation. Frank nodded. Now for the hard part. Their ship moved toward the massive shape emerging from the nebula's edge. The Varden command vessel. 3 times larger than any Earth ship, it led the fleet of 300 warships coming to destroy the humans and finish off the Elysians. Approaching their docking bay, said Edward Powell, keeping his voice low as though the enemy might hear. Scanning shows minimal security. They're not expecting anyone to sneak aboard. Frank guided their ship into a shadow beneath the Varden vessel. Using technology reversed engineered from alien crafts found on Earth, they matched the hull's electronic signature, becoming virtually invisible to sensors. With careful maneuvering, they slipped into an auxiliary maintenance bay. We have 30 minutes to reach the main control room and plant the master disruptor, Frank reminded his team. After that, the fleet will be in firing range of Elysia. Meanwhile, on Elysia's surface, Jack Reeves and Diana Miller watched the situation unfold from a command center set up in the ruins of the Elysian capital. A holographic display showed the approaching Varden armada as tiny red dots. Frank's team has boarded the command ship, Diana reported. The rest of our fleet is in position behind Elysia's larger moon. Jack nodded, his face tense. And the Galactic Council. Diana's expression darkened. Ambassador Winters is still presenting evidence, but the hegemony representatives are denying everything. They claim this is just a peacekeeping mission against Elysian terrorists. Jack turned to Ambassador Lyra. We need your help. If the hegemony controls the Council, we need to bypass them. Can we broadcast directly to all planets in the sector? Lyra looked surprised. Our communication array was destroyed, but she turned to one of her scientists. The deep space relay on our outer moon, is it still functional? The scientist nodded slowly. It survived the initial attacks. With enough power, it could reach every world within 50 light-years. That's what we need, Jack said. John Peterson, our intelligence specialist, has compiled all the evidence linking the Vardens to the hegemony. If we can broadcast that to every world, it won't just be our battle anymore. Lyra finished, understanding dawning on her face. They immediately began preparations. Sophia Martinez, Earth's communications expert, worked with Elysian technicians to activate the moon relay. John Peterson organized the evidence, intercepted communications, financial records, and testimony from Elysian survivors. Aboard the Varden command ship, Frank's team moved through darkened corridors. They wore adaptive camouflage suits that blended with the surroundings. 2 Varden guards fell silently to stun weapons before they could raise an alarm. The main control room is ahead, Edward said, checking the small scanner. Heavy security. Frank studied the layout. We need a distraction. Susan grinned. Leave that to me. She took a small device from her pack and attached it to a power conduit in the adjacent corridor. Fire in the hole in 3, 2, 1. A controlled explosion rocked the section. Alarms blared as Varden crews rushed to contain what they thought was an accidental power surge. In the confusion, Frank's team slipped into the main control center. The Varden commanders were focused on the emergency. None noticed the 3 humans placing small devices at key points around the room. Susan activated the master disruptor, which synced with the devices planted throughout the nebula. Ready on your command, she told Frank. Frank checked the time. We wait until they're fully committed to the attack. Then we trigger everything at once. Back on Elysia, Jack received the signal that Frank's team was in position. All around him, humans and Elysians worked together, preparing for what might be their final stand. The comm system crackled. "This is Nicole Winters," came a voice from the Galactic Council. "I'm about to present the final evidence. The broadcast is ready. Waiting for your signal, Admiral." Jack looked at the tactical display. The Varden fleet had cleared the nebula and was moving into attack formation. "It's time," he said. "Tell Frank. Execute." On the Varden command ship, Frank received Jack's order. "Execute now," he whispered to Susan. Susan pressed the activation sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every quantum disruptor planted throughout the nebula and on the ship activated simultaneously. A wave of energy pulsed through the Varden fleet. Ship after ship lost power to weapons and navigation systems. On the command bridge, Varden officers shouted in confusion as their controls went dark. "What is happening?" demanded General Kravik. Before anyone could answer, every screen on the bridge switched to show Nicole Winters standing before the Galactic Council. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice broadcasting to hundreds of worlds. "I am Ambassador Nicole Winters of Earth. What you are about to see is evidence of a conspiracy that has cost billions of lives." The broadcast showed intercepted communications between hegemony leaders and Varden commanders. Financial records revealed payments for the attack on Elysia. Testimonies from Elysian survivors described the unprovoked assault on their peaceful world. "The hegemony ordered this genocide for one reason," Nicole continued. "The Elysians discovered how to create unlimited clean energy that would be freely available to all. This threatened the hegemony's control over fuel resources they used to dominate other worlds." In the council chamber, representatives from dozens of planets turned to stare at the hegemony delegates, who could no longer deny their involvement. Throughout the galaxy, people watched in horror as the truth was revealed. On planets long oppressed by the hegemony, protests erupted. Governments issued statements condemning the attack on Elysia. Frank and his team slipped away from the Varden command ship during the chaos. As they returned to Elysia, the disruptor's effects began to fade. The Varden fleet regained power, but they no longer advanced toward Elysia. 6 months later, Admiral Jack Reeves stood with Ambassador Lyra on a balcony overlooking the rebuilt Elysian capital. The city gleamed in the light of 3 suns, its architecture blending Elysian and Earth designs. "The Liberty Accord now includes 27 worlds," Lyra said. "With Earth leading the alliance, the hegemony's power continues to decline." Jack nodded. "And the Elysian energy technology being shared freely, as we always intended. Already, 3 former hegemony worlds have declared independence, now that they no longer need imported fuel." Linda Warren, Earth's chief diplomat who had drafted the Liberty Accord, joined them on the balcony. "The Galactic Council has voted to admit Earth as a full member. They're also discussing sanctions against the remaining hegemony leaders." Jack looked out at the city where humans and Elysians worked side by side. Elysian children played with children of Earth diplomats and soldiers who had chosen to stay. Some Earth ships remained in orbit, a promise that this world would never again face danger alone. "When we received your message," Jack said to Lyra, "many wondered why we should risk our lives for aliens we'd never met. But that's not who we are. Humans have fought countless wars against each other, but we've always fought hardest when defending those who cannot defend themselves." Lyra's eyes shimmered with emotion. "You could have ignored our call. No one would have known." "We would have known," Jack replied simply. Later that day, the Excalibur prepared to return to Earth, its mission complete. Christopher Harris, captain of the EDF Vindicator, would lead the ceremonial journey home with half the fleet, while the rest remained as part of the new galactic peacekeeping force. As Earth's ships lifted into the sky, thousands of small Elysian vessels rose to escort them. The Elysian ships glowed with beautiful lights of all colors, creating a stunning display against the darkness of space. From the surface, Jack watched the ships depart. Ambassador Lyra stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "They thought no one would come," she said softly. Jack smiled. Then they didn't know humans very well. Across the galaxy, the story spread of how a young species from a distant planet called Earth had challenged an empire to save strangers. It was a story that would be told for generations to come, changing forever how the galaxy viewed these strange, fierce, compassionate beings who called themselves human.